Hashem had said to Avram, leave your homeland, your birthplace, and your family, and go to the land that I shall show you. So Rashi at the beginning had explained that it wasn't only to leave his homeland, and whatever he told him to leave behind, he's not even sure where he's going. The land that I will show you. The question is, how do you even know what direction to begin traveling? Does he go to the east, the west? How does he even know? To the land I will show you. And the Torah tells us, and when they left to go to the land of Canaan, and they arrived. So why did he travel in that direction, the land of Canaan? So here the Sepharno explains that it was known that the land of Canaan, there was a certain degree of holiness there. It was known in the world, it was a location of holiness, and therefore he assumed that's the direction he should head. That's why he traveled in that direction. And he arrived in the land of Canaan. We find Rashi says later that the Torah speaks about the abominations of the Canaanites, the abominations of the Egyptians, the way of life, the behavior. And Rashi explains that because of the representation of what we were and we are in terms of Kedusha, we represent Kedusha, therefore the opposition to that is at the most intense level. So Goshen, where we were settled, that was the most intense level of impurity of Egypt, because wherever the ultimate level of Kedusha is, the counterforce is in that location. So it was no Canaan. The Canaanites were who? They were descendants of Chum. Chum, it was the son who castrated his father, Noach. This Eved Avodim, they were slaves. I mean, we say, the Gemara tells us, the Midrash tells us, that what's the difference between a tzaddik and a rasha? A rasha, he is a slave to his evil inclination. His evil inclination dictates his life. A tzaddik, he dictates his evil inclination. He controls his evil inclination. So Canaan, that they were all lived a life of abominations, whether it was idolatry, whether it was perversions in the sexual area, it was only because that was their representation. So Avram, understanding who he was and what that represented, he understood that is the location of the ultimate Kedusha, because only because of what is the counterforce that exists there, that is clearly to him an understanding of what direction he should head. The Sepharno says it was known that was the location of holiness. I'm just adding to it that because Avram had this acute sense, and he's already a prophet, he had gone into the kiln, come out of the kiln. He experienced the miracle, and Hashem communicated with him. He understood that definitely he is that representation. Therefore, that's where he should be headed, because he has to actually subordinate and subdue all those negative forces. So the Torah tells us, Vayavar Avram be'eretz Canaan, Avram ba'aretz ad makom Shechem. He had traveled in the land until the location of Shechem on Elon Moreh, a location called Elon Moreh, Vakanani Yos Moretz. And the Canaanites were in the land at that time. Rashi, Vayavar Avram ba'aretz nichlas l'tocho. He entered into the land ad makom Shechem. Why did he go to Shechem? L'spalel b'nei Yaakov she'o lilochi b'Shechem. We find Shimon and Levi, after Dinah was raped, the two sons of Yaakov, Shimon and Levi, they went and they destroyed they killed all the males of the community. After the prince had raped their sister. So we showed him, the early commentators explained what was the justification. And we find even when Yaakov, when he reprimanded them, he didn't reprimand them because, God forbid, they committed genocide. He said, we're only a handful of people. We're surrounded by all these nations. I mean, how do you put us in jeopardy? That was the criticism of Yaakov to his sons. So they answered Nevolim Nasis Bishro that this nevola, this unconscionable act was done against Yisrael, against you. Therefore, that's what we did it. So the question is, so some Rishonim learn explain that one of the 7 Noahide laws is to establish a judicial system to punish those violators of the 7 Noahide laws. Shechem had raped a woman, which is a violation of one of the 7 Noahide laws, because how do you take a woman? Stealing is one of the Noahide laws. There's no greater theft when you go and you violate a woman's body against her will. So therefore, Shechem was deserving of the death penalty. But the members of the community of Shechem were intimidated by him because he was a prince, so they did not actually prosecute him. So therefore, they were in violation of the Noahide laws of enforcing law based on the Noahide law of setting up a judicial system. Therefore, they were all deserving of the death penalty. That's how the Rambam learns. Therefore, it was justified, except Yaakov criticized his sons, he says, but now's not the time, because he put us all in jeopardy. So he went to Shechem to be mispal, to pray for his grandchildren who are going to be engaged in battle with Shechem. I had 2 young men. They were young boys, just bar mitzvah. The 2 of them miraculously destroyed the community, all the males. I mean, how could they not be? It's inevitable one of them would be wounded, killed. It was due to Avram's tefillah that he prayed for them because he sensed what was going to happen in the future. And that's the reason why they had divine protection. So that's the first and foremost, he went to Shechem. Okay? He had that sense. That's the location where this terrible tragedy may take place, because they're going to be subject to this danger. He prayed for them. Now, we had once mentioned that when Yaakov believed that Yosef was killed by a beast, it says he couldn't be consoled. Could not be consoled. And as much as his children tried to console him, he would not accept the consolation because he felt he was at fault that Yosef was killed. And Rashi over there cites the Medrash that he had a Kabbalah, he had through tradition that if any one of his sons dies in his lifetime, he will not have a share in the world to come. He failed. Why? So we explained then, because Klal Yisrael is comprised of Yud Beit Shvatim. We have 12 tribes. If Yosef dies, was killed, Yaakov was meant to establish 12 tribes. If you remember, the Medrash tells us when he went to Har Moriah, when he returned after being in Shem Ve'ever, and before he went out to Lavan, he took 12 stones, put them under his head, and all 12 stones were fused into one. And that was a confirmation that he was going to be the patriarch, the father, the 12 tribes. He was pure enough. Those 12 sons, none of them could have died in his lifetime because Klal Yisrael is 12. And ultimately, as we said, is 13. Because Yosef was divided into Ephraim and Manasseh was divided into 2 tribes. So ultimately, there were 13 tribes. The number 13, again, as we discussed, is Echad. Numerically is 1. Atosh Echad Shimcha Echad, we say. You are 1, your name is 1. Umi Kamcha Yisrael Goy Echad. Who's like the Jewish people? There's only one such nation. Now, we're not only talking about in terms of our behavior, there's only one such nation, but the profile is Echad, with 13. And we explained, according to the Maral explained that even the hierarchy within Klal Yisrael, the letters Aleph, Ches, Dalet, which is the letters of Echad, who was the ultimate, the most spiritual of all 12 sons? Levi. Levi is Aleph. Then you have the sons of the matriarchs. There were 8 sons of the matriarchs. That's Ches. Rachel had 2 children. Leah had 8. And then you had 4 sons of the concubines. That's 4. So not only we 13 in number, but even the spiritual hierarchy, it's Aleph, Ches, Dalet. That's the moral of Prague. So therefore, Yaakov understood that if any of his sons actually predecease him, that means he failed. And therefore, he's going to forfeit a share in the world to come. Avram understood, was communicated to him that his grandchildren, Shimon and Levi, are going to be in a position that unless they have divine protection, they're going to be killed. So that was first and foremost how to be addressed. If there's going to be a Klal Yisrael, Shimon and Levi cannot be killed. That's the first thing he was praying. Then he went to Elu and Moreh. So Rashi says, Hishchem, Her'eo ha'grizim ha'revo. If you remember, right before we went into, before Moshe Rabbeinu passed away, we entered into another covenant. What was it? It was called Arevos. Kol Yisrael Ravens said 6 tribes were on Mount Grizim, 6 tribes were on Harevo, and the Levim and the Kohanim with the Oron were between the 2 mountains. And they turned to one mountain and said, Baruch, this, or this. They turned to the other mountain. So this was the location where Klal Yisrael assumed the concept of Arevos, communal responsibility, we're all responsible for one another. And therefore, if one Jew fails, the other Jews are responsible for him, if they could have made a difference. That's the concept. And over there, if you take a look in the Meforshim, the Rechaim HaKodesh speaks at length of this, the concept that Jews are responsible for one another is the guarantee for the eternity of the Jewish people. So he went to Elul Moreh because that was the location, that was so-called the solidifier. That allowed us to reach a point that everything crystallized to guarantee the eternity of the Jewish people. So first we need the infrastructure, the spiritual infrastructure, the profile. That's Shimon and Levi, he prayed for them. And then Elul Moreh was the covenant of Arevus, that because that's where it was going to be secured, that we'd be going to be, because of that new covenant, we're going to be the eternal people. We find that Avram comes to Canaan. He's there just a few months. There's a famine. And the Midrash tells us in the history of the world, there's never such a famine. And the only location he'd go was to Egypt, because that's where there was food. He goes to Egypt, as we'll read. And then afterwards, Suri Menu is nearly defiled. She's taken for the king. Miraculously, he's not able even to touch her. Hashem sent a malach to protect her. Whenever Sarah said to the malach, smite him, he had smitten Paro. He could not go and touch her. And then afterwards, when he realized who Avram was, that Sarah was not his sister, but rather his wife, he had left Egypt with tremendous wealth. Tremendous wealth. So Avram went to Egypt with not much. When he left with tremendous wealth. So Ramban cites the Midrash, Nachmanides, Masovisim Labanim. Since ultimately, Klal Yisrael would be going to Egypt. And when we leave, we were guaranteed we would leave with one of a level of wealth. So therefore, this already foretold what the future was going to be. That the dynamic already was set by Avram, who's the patriarch. He's the beginning. So ultimately, it should actually come to fruition hundreds of years later. That's Masav V'Sim Labanim. So he went to Egypt. Not that he understood this at this moment, but the event evolved in such a way because ultimately this was going to happen in the future. So he set the dynamic. That's Masav V'Sim Labanim. Here we're talking about something else. Hashem gave Avram an understanding of what the future will bring. Whether it was through Ruach HaKodesh, which is divine inspiration, that a terrible tragedy will take place in this location. And he had a sense that he's going to have grandchildren, that their lives are going to be in jeopardy. And they could be killed. And unless he's mispali prays for them, they're not going to merit divine protection. And if they should be killed, there's no Klal Yisrael. Because there was a Masorah among the Avos, the patriarchs, that the Jewish people, the profile is 12, and ultimately 13. So it's unrelated. Masa Avisim Labanim. It's only because he had an understanding of what the future is going to be. That's why he prayed. And what's this idea of what? And Elul Moreh, that's Hagriz Marevo. Because there, the ultimate covenant was going to take place, the concept of Arevus. So therefore, he went to that location. Because that was going to solidify the involvement of what? Of Kabbalah Satorah, to set it in a permanent setting to be eternal. That's what I understand. This has nothing to do with myself, Bismillah Labani. He was conquering the land from what? From the progeny of Shem. Because Eretz Yisrael, when the world was divided among the families after the generation of the dispersion, Shechilak Noach Hazoros Labon of Shenemar, Malkitzedek, Melech Sholem, Vichoch, V'yomal Avram, Zarach Etenis Orz Hazos, Osa Ani Lachzir Labon. Ultimately, the land of Canaan was really given to the progeny of Shem. Avram was from the progeny of Shem. Canaan is Chom. Ultimately, in the future, the land will be returned to you. So that the Ramban is explaining, that's Mas Simen Ovid L'Slabonim. He was doing a conquest. What kind of conquest? It was just a semblance of what that was. He representing the Klal Yisrael, he's the founding patriarch, so his action sets the dynamic, ultimately, that it should actually come to fruition hundreds of years later.
So in this instance, it's the two interpretations are that he's foretelling the future or he's setting the future.
Correct. But the closing part of Rashi is that he was conquering the land. That is the Ramban. That part's the Ramban. When it says the Canaanite was in the land then, so his act, his behavior, what he was doing, wasn't at that moment a conquest. It was only setting it into the dynamic. So in the future, ultimately, his children should be able to conquer the land. Hashem el Avram. Hashem appears to Avram. To your progeny, I will give this land. He built a mizbeach to Hashem who had appeared to him. It doesn't say he brought a korban. He did not. This mizbeach was not to bring a korban, to bring a sacrifice. It was only, he built it to commemorate the event that took place at this location. That was the value of the Mizbeach. Rashi, Vayiv Sham Mizbeach, Al Besuras Hazera, because of the good tiding that he was going to have the child, because Hashem had said to him, when you go to the land, right, you're going to have father a child there in that land eventually, and the land will be your land. So he built the Mizbeach to commemorate the Suras Hazera B'Absuras Eretz Yisrael, which is L'Zar Chetenu Soretz Hazos. Okay? The Orach Chaim says something different here. Phenomenal. Hashem says you can have children, which today he doesn't have children. He's a man who's homeless. He has no land. Hashem says you will have the child, which you don't have. You will have a land which you don't have. This land is yours. So when you express your thanks to God, what do you express it for? What should be the commemoration for? So it says, that's to commemorate the communication of Nevuah in Eretz Canaan. It wasn't the children, it was not the land. He built the Mizbeach Lashem Nir Elov to declare what is this location. This location, when he came to Canaan, this is where God appeared to him, when he had the Nevuah. Meaning that was even more important to him than the children, more important than the land. His relation with God himself. That's Lashem Nir Elov. Put it into context. Why did Avram want children? Why did he want, what was the value of having renown and fame and wealth? That was only to facilitate his dissemination of monotheism. The key to Avram was Hashem and Elof. That was it. The child and the land, that was only to be able to actualize his purpose in existence. But what was his purpose? It was Hashem and Elof. Therefore, the Mizbeach was built to commemorate that communication. That was the first communication in the land that Hashem had communicated with him. That's the understanding. It says, when he left Choron, Hashem had promised him children, wealth, and fame. And it says when he left Choron, it says, Kasher Diber Elav Hashem. He went because it was God's dictate. It's not because he had all these incentives. Why did he go? Because Hashem said to go. But you have all these, no, that's secondary. The emphasis is Kasher Diber Elav Hashem. Dibur is very formal. God gives the dictate, Avram follows the dictate. But you have all these incentives. Those incentives are not the reason why I'm going. Because all that is only because of my relationship, Kasher Diber Hashem Elav, because God had spoken to him.
Rabbi.
Pasuk Ches, Vayatek Misham Horo. He detached himself. He removed himself from there, and he traveled to the mountain. Mikedem Beisel, which was to the east of Beisel, Vayet Ohalo, and he pitched his tent. Beisel Miyom, Beisel was to the west, Vai Mikedem, and I was to the east. Vayiv Shem Mizbeach LaShem, he built a Mizbeach for Hashem. B'Shem Hashem. Again, what was this Mizbeach? The Mizbeach was not to bring a sacrifice. Meaning this was the center of what? This is God's location. This is the location where anything relating to spirituality is going to be disseminated from this location. That's the Mizbeach LaShem. He's designating the location LaShem, and now he's doing outreach. The Yikri is calling B'Shem Hashem. Let's do Rashi. V'yatik B'Shem Olo Mikel Beisel Mizroch Shel Beisel. Okay, Olo. Now the question is, it should say Olo without a hey at the end, correct? The masculine is Olo and feminine is Olo. He had a tent, so his wife had a tent. He pitched Olo, so the vowels read it. It's read in masculine, but the spelling is seemingly the hey is feminine. What exactly is Torah telling us? Interesting. He first pitched his wife's tent, Sarah's tent, and then he pitched his own tent. What is this all about? This protocol, this etiquette. When you're walking with a woman, you open the door, you let her go first. And then you follow. Is that what the Torah is telling us? First, you pitch your wife's tent. I mean, is the Torah teaching us Shalom Bayis? Maybe it's Shalom Bayis, right? Do you think Sarah Menu would have minded if he pitched his tent before her tent? Just a simple understanding. Ernie, you hear the question?
Rabbi, I'm just happy that Avraham was a pitcher.
So good. You're lucky he didn't carry a big bat, Alan, because I don't think you would have enjoyed that question. Okay. So this is what I was thinking.
If Avram was pitching it,
Good.
pitched the perfect game.
Yeah. So this is what I was thinking. It has nothing to do with Shalom Bayis. The Gemara tells us that if you have enough money and you either can give it to a woman or a family, they're financially strapped and they have to go to the charity of the community. You give first to the woman and then to the man, because a man, the Gemara says, is able to go seek out alms, could go beg, go from door to door knocking. For a woman, it's inappropriate. It's a breach of her modesty. The glory of the bas melech, of the princess, is pinima. She's concealed. That she shouldn't have to expose herself, go out to collect money, to beg. A man, it's if he has to, he does it. You do what you have to do. For a woman to do it, that's a breach of who she is. We read that Matovo Alecha Yaakov, the what we say every day, what even Bilam Russia, what he was amazed, Matovo Alecha Yaakov, B'shlosecha Yisrael, because he saw the tents of the Jews, that the entrances of the tents, they were not opposite one another. Why? Because that indicated the modesty of the Jews. That one person can't look through into the tent of the other Jew. That's the modesty. The oil regarding the Jewish people is the wife. That's the oil. That's the tent. Avram pitched the tent of his wife before he pitched his own tent. She needs that protection. She has to be concealed. After she has her domicile, then he tends to what he has to do for himself. That's what the Torah is communicating. Although it's spelled, although his tent, but the hay is there to allude to this concept that he first pitched her tent and then he pitched his own tent. That's what the Torah is communicating, teaching us. This is through Avram Avinu's behavior.